Hey guys. So I don't know if any of you saw my status post from earlier today with the picture of the smoothie, but I just kind of wanted to expand on that a little bit. And I promised Bill that I'd post a video soon just bragging about how awesome he is. So I wanted to follow through and be true to that word too. During the revival that I mentioned in one of my other videos, revival with Kip Laxton at our church, the very first sermon that he gave was on Sunday morning. It was kind of an introduction to this series about the different miracles that Jesus performed. He talked about the story where Jesus appeared for the first time to the disciples after he had been resurrected. The disciples all came out of hiding, and some of them decided to go back to fishing because that's what they knew, that's what they were comfortable with. And now that Jesus was gone, they were going to return to what they were comfortable with. They fished all night and they caught nothing. So the next morning they were tired, they were feeling discouraged, and they see this man on the beach. And I think one of them recognizes who it is, and he says, "Did you catch anything?" And they said no. And the man on the beach tells them, "Well, put your net on the other side of the boat." And they do that, and then the net is so full of fish that they can barely pull it back up onto the boat. And I think it may be at that time that they recognize that it's Christ who's standing on the beach. So they bring the boat in, and they see that Jesus has prepared them breakfast. And he says, "Come sit, let's talk." I can't tell you exactly what specific message Kip was trying to share in that sermon, but I want to tell you what I took away from it. When he talked about how the disciples had deserted Jesus in his greatest time of need, and then was back and showed up on the beach and had made them breakfast and just wanted to sit down and talk, he acted like nothing had ever happened. He doesn't bring up how they betrayed him and turned their backs on him. This was probably the most devastating betrayal in the history of mankind. And yet Jesus showed up and made them breakfast and acted like nothing had ever happened. And I could not stop the tears from flowing in church. Thankfully, I had my trusty pack of My Little Pony tissues in my purse with me because I went through about half of them during that sermon. But it just really touched me to think about not just anybody, but Christ, Jesus specifically, showing up on the beach and made them breakfast and pretended like nothing happened. And how many times in my life have I screwed up? Have I hurt people I care about? And I so desperately just wanted them to be there the next morning, making breakfast, pretending like nothing had ever happened. You know, most of the time, they couldn't because they're not Jesus. I've been really hard on Bill over the last few years. We both brought a lot of baggage into our marriage. And in the last couple of months, I've felt especially critical of him. Through some pretty intense sessions with my counselor, I have finally gotten to the center of that. And, you know, maybe that's a story for a different time. But I realized, you know, regardless of how hard I am on Bill, he's always there making me breakfast in the morning. And that was the first time in our marriage that I was able to blatantly recognize how he represents Christ in my life. And it was a turning point for us. He was working a softball tournament that morning. He wasn't there with me in church. And so as soon as I left church, I got out my phone and I called him. And I was just like, "Do you have a minute? Because I need to tell you about something." And I know that it really touched him too. I mean, who doesn't want to hear how they specifically represent Christ in another person's life, especially their spouse? So I don't know what you're going to take away from that, but I just felt the need to share with you about that story and kind of explain about the picture of the smoothie on my timeline in a little more detail. But guys, think about the people that you have in your life, the people you're especially grateful for. See if you can think of some specific things about them, or even specific ways that they represent Christ in your life, and tell them. Because regardless of whether or not they ask for it, everyone needs to hear it sometimes. Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon and happy hump day. Bye.